Greetings. This is Paul. Talking about A Course in Miracles today, and I thought I'd make a shorter video about the cause of sickness. Quite a few people have been asking about doing more videos that are more practical and more touching upon the struggles. So what is the cause of sickness? Well, what is health? In the biggest picture, health means wholeness and sanity and being joined with God and filled with love and happiness and freedom from fear and lack of ego, having no split mind, being as God created me. That is health. And part of why it's health is that you're being natural. You're being like the nature that God intended for you to be, and that means that you are filled with love, and your mind extends outward to your brothers and sees them as innocent and holy, just as you see yourself as innocent and holy. There's no attack, there's no ego, there's no separation, there's no sense of isolation or being confined to a body or being split off and kept apart from others. So when ego gets in the way and you start getting into separation ideas and you start there starts being differences between you and others, there starts to be attack thoughts and judgments and grievances, and you start withdrawing from others, and you become more isolated. You get confined to the body becomes kind of a prison. Your mind stops extending past the body and it stops being forgiving, so it stops overlooking the body, stops overlooking other people's bodies, starts fixating on bodies, makes bodies real, and confines you and your brother to form. This is what the body itself is, a symptom of that process, where we've tried to make ourselves be limited and be sort of trapped in a separate location where other people don't exist, so that you're kept away from them and you're not able to join with them. That is sickness. So your mind is supposed to be going out everywhere and joining with everyone in love and sharing and openness and happiness and joy. And when it stops doing so, you are, what Jesus calls, you are arresting the extension of your mind. You're stopping your love from going out. So you're putting a block there. So a block to awareness produces sickness. It separates you off from your brother and fosters separation, and from that there becomes a kind of a gap, a little gap between you and others, or between you and God, between you and yourself. You get into a split mind, and now your mind is sick, and now the body will become sick too, because whatever state the mind is in, it's going to use the body to express its idea of itself. And so if it's having a sort of a war with itself, and you're attacking yourself through this idea of not love, it's going to bring about a split mind within yourself, and now you're in conflict and you're attacking yourself, and that's going to create sickness. And as the Course says, a guiltless mind cannot suffer. However, the mind, having been healed, heals the body, because it's a sane thing to do. And he also says that those who who are sick do not love themselves, because if they were to love themselves, they would heal themselves. This is kind of the responsibility that we have, is that we have to, in order not to be sick, in order to be healthy, in order to have a body that reflects a healthy mind, where the body cannot be sick and it cannot become attacked and it cannot die, your mind has to be in a good place. Mental wellness produces physical wellness. Even if the mind is the only real place where there's a problem, it will use the body to express itself. And if it expresses itself in a harmful way, the body becomes harmed as well, and then it becomes sick, because now you're trying to confine your mind to the body by not allowing yourself to fully love, and that will make sickness. Another way that Jesus describes this is that to the ego, when the truth comes along, and your ego, your identification with the ego and the body, if you think that that's being attacked by the truth, because of your misperception, you will put up a defense. So you tried to block out the truth by pushing it away, withdrawing from it into the body, making yourself smaller and more confined and contracted and hidden, so as to hide from the truth. And that is based on a belief that you're preserving your health by trying to save your life. But because it's based on a lie, the lie is that you are this vulnerable ego that needs to be defended. And if you defend yourself, you are attacked. When you try to defend that artificial self, in order to preserve that artificial self, you have to shut out life. And even though you're doing it in the name of trying to maintain your existence, and you're trying to protect what you think is you, because you identify with the ego and the body, you think it's you, so you're trying to protect that. And in that protecting act, you implement defenses and try to shut out and put a distance or a separation between you and the thing that splits you off. It splits your mind. It makes you sick. Sickness is a defense against the truth. And then having implemented that block, that denial, your awareness becomes blocked. Now you're no longer aware that you are the one who saw a need to have a defense in order to protect you. You put the defense in place as a block to life, and that made you go unconscious. So now you're hiding behind it, and you've actually blocked. You've tried to use the defense to block your awareness of the threat, and now you see the threat as hidden behind the block, and it's protecting you. And that means that you're no longer consciously aware of the thing that's threatened you, because that's the whole point of putting the block in place, the defense. And so now you're hiding behind the defense, and you don't see the block, and you don't see that you saw the need for the defense, and you don't see that you're the one who implemented the defense. And so now because you're not aware any longer that you put the sickness there, i.e. you used separation to try to protect yourself. In other words, you hurt yourself in order to try to make yourself not be hurt. That's where the ego is insane. you blocked out awareness, so now you're not consciously aware that you're responsible for having chosen to react to the threat by making yourself hurt. And so now all that you're left with in your conscious awareness is, oh, my body's starting to do some things, and I'm getting sick, and symptoms are showing up, and I didn't ask for this. So if it seems like you didn't ask for it, all of a sudden it's like, well, now I've got to find another explanation. Where did this come from? Who put this here? Who made this happen? Wasn't me. So then you start looking around. Was it something I ate? Was I infected by a virus? Was it something somebody did to me? Or something's gone wrong with my body. My body has a mind of its own, or a will of its own, and then you start dwelling on the symptoms, and you start being afraid of the symptoms and what this thing, this unknown cause, is doing to you against your will, because you don't see that you've attacked yourself. And now you're afraid of this threat, which is the threat of there's an alien will separate from who I believe I am, who I'm aware of myself being, who is attacking me against that will, seemingly. And so now I've got to deal with this new threat, and then this new threat is this sickness is showing up, and then you'll start to attack the sickness, and then you'll start trying to defend against the sickness and block it out and go into even more denial. And you get layer upon layer of self-deception, trying to explain, not trying to explain it away, but trying to make it go away by using the ego's tool of denial to try to block it from your awareness, to hide from it, to not look at the real cause, because you're afraid to look at the real cause because you thought the thing was a real threat. So I have an example of how this was shown to me and how I did this exact thing. There was a time where I was talking to the Holy Spirit and was still ego identified, and I, as an ego self, started to realize that maybe there wasn't any separation between me and the Holy Spirit. And I'd always been thinking of him as a separate being, or as like a cut-off thing that wasn't me. And this idea started coming into my mind that there wasn't a wall between us necessarily, and therefore he had full access to me. This scared the shit out of my ego, because immediately I interpreted it to mean, if there's nothing to stop the Holy Spirit from accessing my ego self, he's going to undo me, and therefore my existence is at risk. The truth has threatened to topple my establishments, and now in order to preserve my sense of self-existence as an ego, I have to put some distance between me and the Holy Spirit. So immediately I went into fear, and I was sort of horrified, and then instantly, just automatically, and without even really thinking about it, just did it. I tried to block him out. I tried to shrink away, and I felt myself going into like a tightness in my body, and trying to hide and cower in fear that I wanted to block him out. So I put this block there psychologically in my mind. Somehow I implemented a denial to shut out awareness of him being there, so that I would believe a fantasy that he wasn't there, so therefore I would be safe. Just hiding, basically. And within a matter of hours, both of my ears started to become clogged up with sinus congestion. They started ringing. My head became clogged up. It became quite strong and uncomfortable, and so I thought to myself, oh great, I'm getting an ear infection, or maybe it's an allergy reaction, or something that I ate, or maybe I picked up a cold from someone, or now I'm going to have to deal with the sickness, and started dwelling on the symptoms and the sickness, not really believing that I had made this happen. Was not really aware that I had induced it. I caused myself to be sick, and struggled with it, and then started looking to medications and what can I do to fix it or attack it or do something to make it go away. I'm going to have to suffer with this for the rest of the week, blah, blah, blah. And suffered with it for a couple of days until I finally realized and remembered that I think that I probably did. This started when I put up that defense, and it started when I perceived Holy Spirit as a threat, and I kind of put two and two together, and then had to admit that I was afraid of that, and that because I was afraid of what it implied, the undoing of myself, that's why I was feeling threatened, and therefore that's why I needed the defense. I needed it to try to protect myself from the Holy Spirit. And upon seeing that, I eventually found some courage to get past the fear, to reapproach the Holy Spirit, to reapproach the truth, and to not see it as a threat, and to not interpret it as dangerous. Not meaning that I was going to be undone by it or attacked by it. That was just a reaction of my ego. When I got to that willingness to not be afraid of it and to not have a need in my perception of it to be defended against it or protected from it, I was able to let go and drop the perceived need for the defense. And so I saw that I didn't need to have a defense against this because it was only trying to love me and support me, and therefore I didn't have to be seeing myself as attacked by it. It was safe to be exposed to the truth, and therefore I don't have to protect myself. I therefore could let go of that perception and that belief and that reaction. Within a matter of a couple of hours, every single symptom disappeared. My ears cleared up, all the congestion went away, the ringing stopped, because I was trying to block out. I didn't want to hear the truth. And you'll find that sickness quite often shows up in body parts that are symbolic of the problem as you perceive it. So if you didn't want to hear something, you might get ear problems. If you couldn't stomach the truth, you might get digestive problems, or there's all kinds of interesting ways that the symbolic body shows up symbols of certain attitudes and issues that you perceive that have some kind of a meaning, and you can sometimes use that to trace back, well, what was it I didn't want to hear? What are my ears telling me about this? How is this, what is it saying to me, and how is it trying to communicate that because there's a problem in this part of the body, why is it in this part of the body? What does that mean? And why did I put it there? And what does it symbolize? And therefore that can help you to trace back your steps to see how you arrived at that. So if you can get past the need for the defense and let go of all the bullshit about, oh, I'm sick and the sickness is a problem and it came out of nowhere and I didn't choose it, and you recognize that you did choose it, you put it there yourself, and you wanted it, you implemented it, there is nothing that cannot be healed, because once that illusion is recognized, it disappears, and the sickness, the symptoms go with it. A sane mind heals the body. So that for me was a lesson in sickness is a defense against the truth, because it really helped me to see the process. It wasn't a severe sickness, but it showed me how I got into it and how I got back out of it, through a willingness not to be afraid and to recognize that I didn't need this defense and didn't need to be protected by my sickness, that my sickness was a way to try to keep me alive, even though it's insane and it actually makes you less alive because it's ego advice. It's what I thought I needed, so it's what I tolerated in order to try to protect myself. This is the whole meaning of the sickness is the defense against the truth lesson in the workbook. When you can remove that block to awareness and see that behind it you chose it. Secret to salvation is that you did this to yourself, and drop that perceived need, then you can let go of the need for it, because once the purpose of the sickness is recognized and you no longer have the purpose of it, you don't have this function that it is fulfilling for you to protect you and defend you, then you don't have a basis for having to be sick, and you don't need to be sick, so that you just drop it and it just disappears. So that's the basics of how you become sick. It's something that you do to yourself, and it's something that you choose, and it's all part of a perceived withdrawal away from others and away from God, to try to hide in a body, to make the body real as a way to hide and protect yourself. But it makes you sick as you do that, so you need to do the opposite, which is to open up to love. And miracles unite you with your brother. It undoes sickness. Every form of sickness is a form of separation between you and others. So I'm going to keep this one a little short. There's a lot more that we could say about sickness and healing, and I'll do some more videos on specific parts of it. This is just kind of an introduction to what sickness is and how it comes about. So I'll see you next time, and hopefully this was a little bit helpful, and God bless.